we need to build a new and equitable European story engine that gives voice to all people and not just one universe. I'm very, very pleased and happy to be here. Thank you for coming. I think this is a very important subject. And rather than talk about myself and my views in leadership, I just want to actually discuss two strategies that I think that Europe could be executing that are relatively simple. And so we'll just jump right into it. Look, we know, I think most of us are in media, we know that there is a profound opportunity in European media to build a story engine that actually reflects the real world, rather than the skewed and outdated, I believe, Western view we've been exporting. And I want to talk about what exactly this means in a second. So in the age of streaming, it's actually been a phenomenal time of opportunity because there's billions of dollars being invested in content creation and storytelling. A lot of good has happened, particularly to content creators and storytellers and filmmakers. But actually, I don't believe Europe has been a leader in this. And this is purely observational. There's no statistics or research behind this. But as someone who consumes media very heavily, I don't believe Europe has taken a leadership role. So there is actually an opportunity to do something crucial and very urgent. And that is give voice to the voiceless and reimagine creativity. And I don't believe that we should be doing any of these because they're beautiful things to do or that they're holy or sacred. I think that, and all those things are important, I think we should be executing these strategies because it's good business and it keeps us as a robust nation, a robust continent, etc. Let's dive into this. Give voice to the voiceless. It sounds very beautiful. It's kind of like got this righteous ring to it. But I really mean this in the sense of what Sten was talking about earlier, which is millions of people. By the way, this is when you PowerPoint, this sometimes happens. But millions of people are actually missing or caricatured in the global narrative. And Sten was talking about if Europe is a train station or something, that there are many trains and some of them might be actually on a collision path. I believe we live in a parallel universe of narratives. There's one narrative that exists which a lot of people from one half of the world consume, and then there's a second half which is completely lost in translation. Who are those people? I'm going to give you some examples. There are 9 examples I have, but there are actually many other groups left out. First and foremost, indigenous people of the world. There are 400 million indigenous people. Are we telling their stories? How are we maintaining their mythologies and story oral traditions? There are 80 million displaced people of the world. These are people escaping political execution, maybe climate change, and some of them are refugees. There are actually about 40 million refugees in the world, of which 26 million are in Europe. When someone leaves their home, they don't become disembodied corpses in a river. They carry everything within them, and they carry their stories and their entire traditions with them. How many projects do we have in the larger scheme of things that address those stories? And again, we shouldn't be doing this because it's the right thing and make really polite documentaries about this. These are incredibly creative people. They've come from ancient cultures. We should be celebrating them and telling their stories appropriately, bringing them into the fold. The Roma people of Europe, 10 to 12 million Romas live in Europe. An iterant group of people who have, again, their own traditions. Where are they in the global narrative? We need to ask ourselves this question. Again, not because it's polite, not because it's religious, not because it's holy. It's because it enriches our mythology. Some other groups outside of Europe, but again, Europe has the power to change the narrative. Muslims, minorities, and untouchables in India. India has 1.3 billion people. But the storytelling from India comes out of one engine, and that is Bollywood, which is completely ignoring its minorities, its lower caste people, and its It's women, and I'll come to that later. 3.8 billion women approximately in the world. Women are carrying the world. And just in India, 700 million, Africa, 700 million. We have to ask ourselves, I mean, I think there are lots of great projects now with women directors at the helm, women-centric themes. I saw a wonderful film called Lingua earlier from Africa, which I think is the kind of project we should be seeing more of. But we need to really equalize how many projects have women at the forefront. I think it's crucially important, and I think it's going to change the narrative in a very profound manner. Palestinians, again, one example, 13 million Palestinians. Are we hearing their perspective? Are we seeing stories that are robust and authentic coming from that community? We have to ask ourselves. I don't believe we are. Kurds, 30 to 40 million Kurds distributed over several countries. Where is their storytelling? How many films can you name which are by Kurdish directors or have Kurdish characters at the forefront? They live amongst us. And then finally, Kashmiris is just another example. 5 million people in the north of India have no narrative around them. It's one of the most beautiful and incredible places in the world, but lost in the history of our time. So this is just one example of what I mean by parallel. And again, I'm leaving out a lot of people. I'm leaving out youth. I'm leaving out elderly. I'm leaving out the disabled. But we have to start somewhere. The second point I want to make quickly is reimagine creativity. As I was telling you earlier, none of this should be done because it's the right thing to do. It's not a good incentive. I've spent a lot of in fact, my entire career has been spent in trying to bring underrepresented groups into the forefront, into the mainstream. But I have never succeeded simply by saying, hey, this is the right thing to do, let's give voice to the voiceless. It doesn't work. You have to make the business case, and you have to make the creative case. So what is the creative case? Let's deepen the storytelling. We need to create a new, refreshing, post-colonial global narrative. And Europe is uniquely positioned to do that. What are we talking about? Africa and its diaspora, for example, is a rich source of inspiration with a stunning diversity of voices and experiences. Let's bring that into the fold. Bollywood's a great example. I bring Bollywood and Africa up only because a lot of films are commissioned in Europe, a lot of content is created in Europe, and we need to think about this. Beyond the cliches of Bollywood, there's depth and incredible beauty in India. 23 languages are spoken in the country. How can we tap into that? How can we empower younger, independent filmmakers that bring alternative visions of India into our mix? It's a beautiful, great country. Other places, Iran, Turkey, Egypt, Australia, New Zealand, phenomenal stories in these places. How do we mine those stories? How do we embrace their mythologies? And then authentic representations will give rise to local talent. There is so much talent in these places. How do I know? I've spent my entire career making films in these places and meeting directors and actors and scriptwriters and editors from these places and musicians. And here are some of those people that, I think, for example, we could be tapping into from a variety of countries, some in Europe, some elsewhere. All women, by the way. And there are many men too, but I'm just saying that there is no dearth of talent in our midst. Let's reframe the world. This is an interesting thing because Earth, I believe, is not just a setting for Western narratives. I think for a very long time, because of linear technology, we've been exporting a Western idea of what global culture and global pop culture should be. And I think it's about time we correct that. It's an erroneous notion because the world is more than the West. All of these places in this point, for example, Africa, India, Asia, they cannot remain settings for white self-discovery and moral reckoning only. Why is Africa only a place where somebody goes to discover that they were wrong and they must find themselves? I mean, Africa has its own mythology, There's more also to Africa beyond fantasy. Like I love Black Panther and I love all the fantastical content around Africa, But there's a middle place, with a rich culture that has all kinds of stories. And then let's get past generalizations and get very specific with narrative. This is important. The film I was talking about, from Chad in Africa, is called Lingua. It does exactly that. It's a story about women in a very specific environment with very specific challenges. And I urge you to see it. It's a beautiful film. This is what happens when you start reframing the world. You see the world in a very different and beautiful light. And then finally, let's create systemic change in the story machine. It's, I think, the only way to create leaders of the future. What does this mean? Europe should be training and investing in new talent from the parallel universe that Sten talked about, and I know that exists. We've ignored it so far. And film and television financing should radically rethink the kinds of projects that you are supporting. How many Marvel and Disney films can one actually see? I mean, they're amazing, to be honest. They're escapist, they're beautiful, but there has to be more. How many girls can get lost in a European village and a detective goes to find them only to discover that their village is hiding a secret? I mean, I love that kind of content, but there's more to it. Finally, across the entire ecosystem, whether it be programmers, exhibitors, distributors, we need to connect with the urgent realities of our time. And those realities are rooted in inequity, and we need to correct that. And not to forget Grace Jones. What does she have to do with any of this? Nothing at all. I just love her, and I hear her, listen to her every morning. So if we want to change the narrative, if we want to lead, then we need to build a new and equitable European story engine that gives voice to all people and not just one universe. And we can do it.
Thank you so much, Nusrat. This is absolutely wonderful. Thank you.